Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to I was going to say welcome to a Facebook Live, but this is a Zoom meeting. Jodelle and I had some technical difficulties, but tonight I've got a very special guest. Her name is Jodelle Fitzwater of Get Fit with Jodelle. So I just did a podcast with Jodelle about a week ago, and the way I found Jodelle is I saw her interview with one of my mentors, Dr. Jack Cruz. And it was one of the best interviews I've ever seen of him. She dropped a ton of great knowledge. Well, actually, she asked Dr. Cruz a ton of great questions, and he dropped a ton of great knowledge. But it was a really good interview. And if you struggle with Dr. Cruz's blogs, make sure you check out this podcast that Jodelle did with him, because he really lays out a lot of the fundamentals, and he makes it very understandable. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Jodelle. But Jodelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
Well, thank you, Nathan, for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be on the other end. I really enjoyed interviewing you as well, and I think we're kindred spirits. We kind of talk about similar issues that are affecting a lot of people that we're in practice with. So yeah, this is just really fun. I am a nutrition therapy practitioner, and I reside in Southwest Missouri, of all places. So if you put your finger in the middle of the U.S., that's right where I am. But yeah, I have been teaching nutrition for over 12 years, and also certified personal trainer and a professional stand-up paddle athlete. So just kind of a well-rounded way of saying anything to do with health, wellness, nutrition, lifestyle that creates, like your website talks about, optimal health. That's what I want to be a part of.
Yeah, excellent. So how did you get into that? Tell us your story of how you went from, were you ever not a healthy person? Was there a time in your life where you weren't fit, Jodelle? You were unfit, Jodelle?
Nathan, that's a great question. And the answer is yes, very much so. I grew up in a low-fat, no-fat household. So I grew up with my mom, essentially Susan Powder, but not really. But she was kind of in that way, like, stop the insanity, don't eat fat, everything processed. We drank Diet Coke all day long. My mom owned a fitness center, so I grew up being very active and fit, but yet she had that mentality of let's eat no fat whatsoever. Unfortunately, she died at 35 of stomach cancer.
Oh, wow. Very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she also suffered from several eating disorders, which she passed down to me because she taught me her ways, So
yeah.
I had developed some eating disorders in high school, and then into my 20s, I started doing personal training and got into the bodybuilding mentality of just low fat, still lots of wheat products, Ezekiel bread, high amounts of processed protein powders and things like that.
Yeah.
And not healthy, ended up losing my period, and also at that time lost my father to alcoholism. So it was at that time I was training clients and my own health issues were cropping up, and I was looking back at my life going, why did this happen? Why did my mom die? Why did my dad die? Like, why am I suffering with illnesses? And I was always the type of person that questioned everything. Like, if I could wear that shirt that says question everything, I would wear it every day, because I think that's what we need to do in our life. In fact, it got me in trouble in high school. I had too many questions in class settings to where the teachers would stop answering my questions. So,
oh yeah, God forbid, that's a kid that asks too many questions.
Yeah, I just want to learn, So I asked a ton of questions, and at that time I had to ask myself, because there wasn't any resources in the early 2000s for me to figure out what had happened to my mom. Everybody just said, well, some people get cancer, and I'm like, you know what? No, what was going on with her lifestyle? What kind of person was she? I need to dig deeper. And so I started studying nutrition, and I started studying anything to do with health and wellness, and I got certified to become a food psychology coach because I wanted to know the background behind why people eat a certain way, why my dad had addictions but wanted to stop drinking, and why he couldn't stop drinking even though he had that desire to. So I dove just into everything that I could, and wanted to also help my own issues. I wanted to get back a period that I'd lost for 7 years that made me infertile. And So long story short, fast forward to today, I have studied on my own and progressed in all these different trainings to be able to take what I've learned to each client. And if I can help one person in their walk of life not develop stomach cancer or beat an addiction, then I feel like my parents' death wasn't in vain. And I feel like my life has served a really great purpose of just paying that forward. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
yeah, and I hope that I feel like that has already happened. I've had several instances of clients who have beaten addictions, and several people who have beaten cancer or are now in remission, and I'm
That's
passionate
huge.
about that. So it's nothing I did. It's just the knowledge that I was able to decipher based on not listening to the dogma, not reading Shape magazine, not listening to the food guide pyramid experts, but actually digging deeper into what our creator, our greater, higher creator intended us to eat as human beings. So, and intended us what we intended are to live, like the lifestyle we were intended to live outside of the kitchen as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, and I love how, I'm so sorry that you went through that when you were younger. It must have been really difficult. But I love
no,
how you turned.
sorry, actually, I mean, I think had that not happened, I would be a completely different person today. I would probably be very self-absorbed like I was when I was growing up. And instead I'm able to really focus on other people, and I love that. So I'm actually okay with it. Like it was something that I had to go through to help me be able to know that I wanted to help other people.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But, I love how you turned a tragedy into a triumph, and you looked for the lesson in it. And even though you got discouraged from asking questions as a little girl in school, you never stopped that curiosity. You never stopped asking questions and like, why did this happen? And, what can I learn from this, and how can I use it to help other people? So that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So, Jodelle, I know you mentioned that you became infertile from your lifestyle, the foods you were eating. What were some of the other symptoms that you were dealing with?
Well, I was an over exerciser as well. I was teaching
Mm,
about 15 fitness classes a week, and then running on my own. I was a big time runner.
hmm
Got into stand up paddling, and so just I don't hardly sit still even to this day, but now I do it in a much more balanced way. But I was eating just the way I grew up, low fat or not eating at all. Sometimes I just skip meals and I just power through, and I had tons of energy. My body just ran on adrenaline. And then one day it caught up to me, and that was shortly after we found out we couldn't have kids. And then we ended up adopting from birth this wonderful little person that's a mainstay in my day. So
Yeah.
but fast forward to shortly after we had her, I had corrected a lot of things over that time in preparation for becoming a mom. I'd stopped training so much. I'd slowed down. I changed and tweaked I was my own client and tweaked my whole program of how I was going to live my life in order
hmm
to have this baby. And my period came back about
Wow.
6 months after I had her. And the doctor said it never would. I had what was called exercise-induced menopause. And the
Okay.
doctor said, you've now transferred so far into this, it won't come back. It's been 7 years. And I said, yeah, okay, you can say that, but we'll see what happens. I
Yeah.
always believe in the power of if you give the body the right conditions, it will change. So
Yeah.
it's made to change. You have to give it the proper conditions. You have to set up the right environment.
Yeah.
And so I came back, but at that time we were happy with our family. Thankfully, I wasn't seeking to have any more children. But the cool thing is I knew my health was progressing, and a lot of that had to do with not being low fat and being gluten free, and also changing my lifestyle in a way that you and I have talked about, which actually is mitigating a lot of the health implications of electromagnetic fields and
Yeah.
optimizing your sleep and enhancing that brain gut connection, and
hmm
really getting what I call vitamin P, pleasure, passion, and purpose, and not just working yourself to death
Oh,
every
nice. I love that.
so so that brings me to where I am today, where I've now created a healthier body inside and out, except for a few little hiccup I had last year where I had a really bad toxic mold exposure. And but I'm recovering from that nicely, because thank you to the power of understanding how the body works and what to do when issues come up, it's easily remedied if you know the right places to turn to. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jodelle, I love hearing when people prove doctors wrong. And this is not, it's nothing against doctors. Well, maybe some doctors, some are just not good doctors. But, when you hear these stories, when, a doctor tells somebody, like, you're never going to be able to blah, or this is just the way it is, and then they turn it around, I think that gives hope to so many other people that are out there that are dealing with that same thing or something similar. And they've been told by their doctor, this is just the way it is. You're going to have to deal with this. And learn to deal with it, and too bad, pretty much. So that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. And you said something about, like, the conditions that we provide ourselves, which reminded me of something that Darwin said. So Darwin said, the biggest rule that I wrote about in what was his book on genetics. But anyway, most people think of Darwin, they think of survival of the fittest. But in his book, he says the most important things are your conditions of existence, which is what you were just alluding to. So why don't we talk about that? So most people, like in the health field, they talk about food, they talk about exercise. So obviously, you're an expert in exercise. You're a professional stand-up paddleboard. And I do want to talk about that. But why don't you share some of the other conditions in our environment that really have a big impact and influence on our health and how we feel, and just like with those 3 P's.
Oh yeah, the pleasure, the passion, the purpose. Yeah. There was something that Dr. Cruz said within the past year that I've just been carrying with me, because it's kind of what I always felt, but I think I needed somebody to say it for me to really run with it. And that was, nutrition is 1/3 of health. The other 2/3 is what really matters. And so when I heard him say that, I said to myself, this is exactly what I've been thinking all along. I just needed to hear it from an expert, of sorts. And so I really kept pushing my clients to do different lifestyle habits other than just diet nutrition. It was like nutrition got them in the door. But then I said, okay, here's your meal plan. But now, after you go through the meal plan, here's what we're going to do. I want you to start optimizing your sleep. Let's talk about blacking out your room at night. Let's talk about turning off electronics after 9 p.m. Let's work together on strategies that fit for their lifestyle, that can be conducive to getting back into what humans were designed to do, which is be outside, be in nature, not under blue lights, not in air conditioning 24 hours a day, not going from their home to their car to their office, back to their car, back to their home, and not seeing the light of day. This is where disease starts, because it's against our biology. And so when I heard that, I was like, this is profound, and this is what I want to keep moving forward towards. Even as a personal trainer, before I got into nutrition, I would train people, but I could only get them so far. Then I studied nutrition, and I would get their meal plan under control, but I could only get them so far. And I was like, there's more to this that I'm missing. And yet at the same time, it was like in the back of my mind, I knew that it wasn't really missing. It just needed to be discovered on a bio-individual level. Like, everybody has their environment that might be different than the next person, but there are some basic premises that we can all attend to that can create that better environment, even on a general scale, and then kind of tweak those things to make them fit our lifestyle, because we all have different lifestyles. So
yeah, I love that. So sleep is huge, mitigating their environment from EMFs, and reconnecting with nature. So that's, you don't have to go out and buy any equipment for that. Maybe you have to buy some blue blocking glasses,
right.
but that's stuff anybody can do, right? So it's like, go outside and enjoy nature. It's beautiful.
And that's also something that, just the blue blockers, for example, in general, I like these specific Swanwick ones, because they allow me to look nice when I go out at night too. They give like a little flair, but also it's like, I don't have to change anything. And that's why I tell my clients, I'm not telling you have to stop Netflix and chilling. Put these on if you're going to do it. Let's start there. Let's start small enough there. and things like turning off your Wi-Fi router. I'm really convinced that part of my infertility was because for years I slept on top of a Wi-Fi router. It was right
Yeah.
here in my bed, and that's when I was infertile. I mean, yeah, I'm sure the fact that I did 15 to 20 classes a week was a part of it, but the other part had to be the constant radiation I was under, with my office at the gym having the Wi-Fi router right behind me, and then my bedroom sleeping on top of the Wi-Fi router, 8 to 10 hours a night, which also at that time I was not sleeping more than 4 to 5 hours a night. So like it was very poor sleep on top of it. And so I think these are things that people don't think about. And the way I get them to think about it is to say, okay, maybe life keeps, like your weight keeps creeping up or your health keeps getting challenged. And we've been in this society that's put out hundreds and hundreds of diet books every year, and hundreds of new video programs of workouts. And yet we keep getting fatter and sicker. So at some point, somebody's got to look at that and go, okay, maybe diet and exercise isn't really working. Because if it was, then there'd be that one perfect plan. We'd all be on it. We'd all be perfect. But we are bio individuals. We have individual needs. And also, perhaps it's not as simple as just diet and exercise. And perhaps it's not as complicated as diet and exercise. Maybe it's more simple, like taking a walk barefoot in the grass several times a day, or even once a day, and getting out of the office and getting some sun in your eyes, and I'm so thankful for people like Dr. Cruz and others like you that are out there that are saying this, because if I hadn't come across him, I can guarantee you my daughter would still be sleeping next to a Wi-Fi router. Part of my story that I shared with Dr. Cruz was that I couldn't get her to sleep as an infant more than 35 to 45 minutes at a time. And
wow. So this is throughout the night. She wouldn't sleep more than 35 to 45 minutes at a time.
At the night, she actually would sleep deeper, but that's because we co-slept and she slept in my room. But during the day, when she would nap in her bed, in her room, on the other side of her wall was a Wi-Fi router.
Wow.
I never put two and two together. I just assumed this is the way we live our life, And then one day I happened to start reading and discovering and questioning, and I found Dr. Cruz, and I saw the whole thing about the Wi-Fi router, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to try this while she's napping today. So I unplugged it. She slept for 2 hours that day. And
wow.
2 hour nap. And I was
so from 45 minutes to 2 hours just from unplugging the Wi-Fi router.
Mm-hmm. And what was really sad, I'm ashamed to admit this as well, but the Wi-Fi router on the other side of that wall was also right in front of her toy area, like where she played and frequented a lot. And so knowing what I did to her at a young age, it's like now if you see her, she knows about radiation. She'll see a cell phone tower and she goes, ooh, yuck, cell phone towers.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and she won't, if she picks up my phone, like to bring it to me, of course it's always in airplane mode unless I'm using it, but she brings it to me like it's like, a piece of trash that's dirty. Like she knows not to touch it unless I give it to her to look at something, like somebody's calling to talk to her or something. But that's it. Like we don't watch programs, we don't play games on devices, like none of that. She had so much exposure as a young child, I just mitigate all of it now, or what I call mitogate all of it for her.
Yeah, I love that. Mitogate. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Jodelle, that's so huge, because you see so many kids these days that are already hooked and addicted to these devices. And you just shared, just by turning out the Wi-Fi router, your daughter slept. She had more than a 200% improvement, like 250% improvement in her naps. So if the Wi-Fi router is doing that, what is them playing with the phone for a couple hours a day? What is that doing to them? Is that limiting their potential from what they really could be? Is it impacting their sleep? What's it doing? And I've also seen pictures of your daughter wearing blue blocking glasses. So I want to commend you for, instilling, that knowledge and understanding in her at such a young age. And my son, he also wears blue blockers. He does have a few shows, and we just have a deal. If you watch your shows, you got to wear your blue blockers. And he's used to him, it's normal to watch a show with blue blockers on.
Yeah, and it goes back to setting up those really great conditions, like what you talked about. Like my daughter too, like I shouldn't say she never watches anything, because she has this old 1990s show that I watched growing up called Kipper, and it's this little dog from the UK that has like really calm animation. It's really soft spoken. It's not overwhelming. But what I do is I'll go somewhere and I have YouTube Premium, and so I go and download the videos off of YouTube and save them to
Mm.
my iPad to where I don't have to turn on Wi-Fi for her, and I don't have to have any sort of radiation coming from it other than just the blue light. So she wears her blue blockers, and then she, you know, I'll set it on the coffee table and she has to sit way back here on the couch. So it's like she can't just hold it in her lap, and she's fine with that because we could become a product of the conditions that we're in. And she knows no other way. Like, it's just normal for her, and she doesn't complain that she can't play games on an iPad because she's never done that. So
Right.
I think parents will just take a step back and go, I don't have to do just what society says, and I don't have to just like appease my child with something. I could actually, you know, let them explore. When she says, I'm bored, I go, oh, good, yay for you. You get to go discover something new. So what are you going to discover? And then she gets all excited, like, okay, what am I going to discover?
Yeah.
I did read a study too that was talking about kids are becoming really great at finger swiping, and they've lost the dexterity of holding a pencil, because in schools nowadays there's so many children that are doing all their work on a device versus doing writing, you know, like we did growing up, like writing essays and things like that. So I don't want her to lose that. I don't want her to get so wrapped up in a show that she loses her love for books, because she has a really big love for books. And
Right.
that's a study that came out that shows that children can lose their love of books if they are watching too much instant gratification that cartoons are. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge deal. And it's really interesting. If you look at like a lot of the Silicon Valley execs, they send their kids to schools. So these are multimillionaires. They send their kids to schools that don't have any technology in them. So their kids are writing the old fashioned way, you know, pen and paper. They don't have tablets in school. They don't have laptops. You know, maybe there's a computer for some research. You know, I doubt they have like an old school set of encyclopedias. But for the most part, these kids aren't using computers all day. So people really need to take a cue from what the tech execs are doing and be like, you know, maybe they know something that we don't know.
yeah, it's interesting that those are the tech execs doing that. You know, they do know something that we don't know. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to, you know, you commented on how you were an over exerciser. Talk about that a little bit. So, you know, most people know that exercise is good, but there's a point where too much exercise is not good. So talk about your experience with that and talk about why that can be so bad.
Well, you know, and it's, again, different strokes for different folks, because everybody's too much is different from the other person's too much. And men and women, especially, men can get away with more exercise than women can, because they're conditioned to be, if we think about human biology, the one that goes out all day into the wilderness to find the kill and bring it back to the village, kind of thing. Whereas the women were designed to be at the village, tending to the children, nursing their young, preparing for the day's you know, garden activities, or just anything to prep for dinner. I know I saw this firsthand, which is the only reason I can speak to it, is because I went to a village that's in Vanuatu several years ago.
Where?
Vanuatu. It's a small island it's close to Fiji.
Oh, cool.
And it's like actually where the first Survivor was filmed. So that shows you how rural it is.
Okay.
But what it was is we went to a very remote village of individuals who had seen 40 or fewer white men in their entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to see firsthand how humans were designed to live off of the land with no bearings on what's happening outside of them, no societal pressures or anything. And I've carried this with me forever, because what I saw was beautiful. Like, what I saw was these individuals where they were happy. The men would go out and they'd find the kill that day or work in the coconut plantation. The women would stay behind and tend to the children. And the whole day was geared around preparing for a nice big family village meal in the evening. So the men were going to get the meat or the protein or whatever, and the women were tending to the garden and the children. And it was all to bring it back that night for a big meal around the fire. And there was no refrigeration, there was no light, and so everybody ate together, and whatever was left over was just discarded,
Mm-hmm.
because there was no way to save it.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't anything discarded, because they know plan for what food they're all going to eat because they eat very moderately, you know. And then we sang songs until the sun went down. We ate dinner and then everybody went to bed. Like there was no light, there was nothing to
Right.
do. You didn't have your phone, and even if you did, you didn't have a way to plug it in, so you just didn't use it the whole time we were there.
Yeah.
So it was really wonderful. Like we'd wake up when they showed in the morning, and we'd go out and I'd stay with the women and tend to the children in the garden, and my husband would go off to the men in the coconut plantation or go catch shrimp in the river and try not to get eaten by bull sharks that would come up the river and stuff like
Oh,
that.
wow.
And
Wow, that's so cool.
fascinating.
So how did you guys like?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. So how did you guys even discover this place, and how did you end up going there?
My husband had a family, cousins who were medical missionaries there. So they were tending to the village medicinally just to help with any, you know, viruses that were going around. They had had some issues with health in that village. So they had stationed themselves there to kind of remedy some of the issues of the village.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what they were, some really rare viruses that were going through the village. But it was just a wake-up call to see how I was treating my body. At that time when I went, that was when I was heavy into over-exercising. I said it was several years back, but I think it was actually 2008 or 7. So it's been more than several years. But it was interesting because the men were super active. I mean, they're chopping down trees and they're carrying axes. And the chief of the village was 85 years old, and he had a 6-pack and could climb trees with his bare feet.
Wow.
Nothing like, and then his wife was 80 and she'd squat at the fire. Like I'm talking squat, like a full squat. They didn't have chairs. You just squatted wherever you went.
Yeah.
And they turned to the fire, and I kept looking at her like, there's no 80-year-old in the U.S. that can squat like this. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy. I guarantee she didn't have any back pain either.
No, none. She didn't have any issues. And so I took all that back with me, and I said, we got it all wrong. Like, I'm doing too much. I should be easier on my body, and men can get away with a little bit more. So that's when I started really like tampering down my training and like picking the things that I really love. So I really loved running. I loved paddle boarding, but paddling itself is what I call active relaxation. So you're moving every part of your body, but it's like an orchestra. It's all working together to take every stroke. So you don't get winded. It's no impact on your body. And so it was something I could allow myself to keep that movement that I loved without overdoing it. So the best exercise program that you're going to do is for life is the one you're going to do for life, like the one you can stick to for life. So I kind of,
it's so key.
Yeah. And that's how I kind of came away from, I cut down my classes. I thought, okay, if I'm going to prepare for having a family, then I don't need to be teaching 15 to 20 classes a week. I need to have time to devote to my little one when she comes. So that was very much how I moved away from overtraining. And I would still not say that I don't have bouts of that, because we all struggle with our demons. And so part of mine is a little too much activity, but I have learned that at 8:30 it's bedtime, and I don't see it. No one sees me again till 5 in the morning. So I get a nice 8 hours of sleep, and sleep was always an issue for me, but now I've dialed it in. So it's like you said, it's a journey. Your website is such a perfect name. It's a journey of optimal health. So we're always learning, but I feel like for the first time in my life in the past, 5 years, ever since, or I guess 4 years, ever since the birth of my daughter, that it's really come to fruition for me. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. So Jodelle, can you share like the top 3 things that people are doing wrong that are messing up their health that you see with the clients that you work with?
Yeah, the top 3, well, on a couple different levels. So nutritionally, I wouldn't say that the people are doing wrong, but that they might not be aware of is low stomach acid. And I have a couple theories on this. There's nothing scientific behind it, because the research just isn't out on electromagnetic field and stomach acid. But where, I've got my phone in airplane mode right now, but normally if I was texting, am I holding my phone right at my gut? And so I'm kind of radiating that area. The other place is when people are lying down on the sofa or something, where's the cell phone? It's right at their thyroid. So
yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of hypothyroidism. It's a lot of low. Google those, but there are issues like aversion to meat, breaking fingernails and breaking hair, or peeling fingernails, being anemic, having trouble absorbing your calcium. Also, you might get a test and your doctor says, well, you really need to take in more protein, and you say, I'm eating a ton of protein, but yet you're not breaking it down, because the stomach acid is designed to break down the amino acids from your protein that you're taking in. Low B12, a lot of people you hear, they don't have any energy, so they go to the doctor, they get tested, and the doctor says, oh, it's your B12. Your B12 is low. We'll just give you some shots. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you could do it really just by enhancing the stomach acid levels and getting that naturally to create B12 from your gut, from that intrinsic factor. So it's that, and then it's the thyroid. I mean, you've heard Dr. Cruz say, I'm sure, about how when he first started his medical practice, I think the hypothyroidism was extremely low. You didn't hear about it very much. And now fast forward to today, almost every client that comes to see me is on thyroid medication.
Yeah.
And I don't think it just has to do with food that they're eating. I think a lot of it has to do with the radiation. If you radiate an organ of your body for long enough, it's going to have problems. Why do you think they put that big shield on you when you go to the dentist? They don't want you to get the radiation from the photo machines. But yet it's okay to walk around and do it to yourself all day long, you know?
Yeah.
When I'm on my devices now, I always try to keep my neck covered up, because when I went through my toxic mold exposure recently, I developed hypothyroidism. And so I'm always like my thyroid from radiation when I'm on these calls and stuff. So
absolutely.
Those are like,
I'm gonna pull mine up too.
So those are more of like the physical deficiency. Then the other aspect is like too much reliance on this. So with the sleep epidemic that's happening now, I think that one thing that people might be getting wrong is when they can't sleep, they turn to this. Well, I can't sleep, so let me just go through my feed and see what's going on. And I have client after client that are doing this. And so I went to help them. They go, well, do you think I should take melatonin? They say, no, I think you should turn your phone off. And let's talk about how you can make some melatonin during the day, because you're not making any. So it's just these are too convenient. So part of the problem, or 90% of the problem, is how connected we actually are. You know, in that village, they were only with their village that I was in. They weren't connected to the entire world. And we've become this nation where we feel like, feels like we have to know what everybody's doing at all the time. We have to be on Instagram. Right. What purpose does it serve? Like, call your village, call your mom, and talk to your brother, and like take care of your village, take care of your people. And then what happens outside of that, check in every now and then, but don't make it like every minute of the day we have to be a part of this instant gratification nation. So
yeah, I love that. So low stomach acid, thyroid, and people just, instead of going to sleep, they're on their phone looking at Facebook and getting all worked up about what their friends are posting.
Yeah, and if I could add one more, I would do what that book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, touts as UCD, unintentional chronic dehydration. Because you and I both know that from the standpoint of mitochondria, water is essential, and proper water is essential for the health of your mitochondria. And I'm sure I don't have to go into mitochondria with your listeners, because I'm sure they're all familiar with what that is, knowing you. But there's an epidemic of chronic dehydration, and
for sure,
sweet drinks or caffeinated beverages to stay awake because they're so tired, and not enough reliance on just pure water, and so it's something as simple as half your body weight in ounces each day, but then also adding a little sea salt to that before you drink your water, to make sure that the water is getting into the cell. Because I have lots of clients that go, oh, no, I drink water all day long, but I'm peeing all day long too, so I don't want to drink anymore. And I'm like, I don't want you to drink anymore. I just want you to get it into the cell. So just start to add a little bit of sea salt, so those natural minerals drive it into the cell, and the mitochondria gets what it wants. So
yeah, I love that. So earlier, Jodelle, you mentioned how some of your clients had cancer. It went into remission from working with you. Can you talk about some of your favorite success stories?
Yes. So the one that really rings true is it's just a breast cancer patient who really, I shouldn't say just, I mean, that's a big deal, but it wasn't like a stage 5, very invasive. It was just the beginnings of a breast cancer diagnosis that we had developed. But she wanted to take things the natural way, and she just dialed in her nutrition. She dialed in her lifestyle. She made things a lot less complicated. She improved her sleep, and she got what was very important for her at that time was vitamin P. And she didn't do anything else.
So talk about vitamin P again.
Pleasure, passion, purpose. For me, paddling, playtime, anything that brings you this sense of like being a human that doesn't have to just work or just like burn the candle at both ends or try to like be things to all people. Sometimes it's as simple as taking care of our needs in a way that's not numbing out. So vitamin P is not food. It is not electronic devices. It is not watching movies. It is not playing games on your Xbox. Those are numbing out. Vitamin P is something outside of anything that allows you to numb. You actually feel, you actually touch things, like you're either outside in nature, or you're hiking, or you're with someone you love and you're sharing an intimate moment. It's those kinds of things are not numbing out. You're actually being present with the life that you were given. And I think a lot of people will think about how they spend their day. They're not present. They're not having vitamin P. What they're doing is they're on autopilot. I got to get up. I got to do this. Oh, I can't forget this. I got to call this person. Now I'm at the office. I have my to-do list. I got to email this person. Oh, I got to get home. I got to get groceries. I got to get the kids ready for a bath. I got to go to bed. And then when they get in bed, then they start, or maybe in the shower, sometimes they get there like, oh, I used to love riding horses, and that's just a fleeting thought that just like goes by, and then they don't think about it anymore, but it's always in them. Like vitamin P is always there waiting to be discovered. You just have to like tap that inner child again, or that inner you that at one time was this wonderful individual, but then became like a very, strong, passionate mom towards your children, or a very passionate worker towards your job, which are great things, but you have to have time to come back into the true essence of you. Part of that is like,
I love that Jodelle, that's so important, and that's missing from so many people's lives today. And so many people, it's like you said, they're going through life on autopilot. You've got this one life, so make the most of it. Make sure every day you're experiencing some pleasure, some purpose, and pleasure and passion, and your purpose, right? That's kind of like drives you and guides you throughout your life. So how do you recommend to your clients that they find their purpose? Because I get that question a lot, and I see that question a lot in the different groups I'm in on like Facebook, and it comes up a lot. So what are your recommendations to people that are like, I don't know what my purpose is. How do I find it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is another story with a client of mine that had cancer. And she still actually does have this cancer, but it's not affecting her. So she's actually living this beautiful life with this, it's kind of a carcinoid tumor it's a non-endocrine carcinoid tumor that they're very hard to get rid of, but very slow growing, very small, and that you can live with them your whole life and not realize it, which most of us, as you have heard, we probably all have cancerous cells within us. It's just they're going at any certain time, and they might not be proliferating like other people's are. So the thing I did with her, because she was this nurturing individual that just wanted to help everyone, but except for herself, she had let herself, and her health decline greatly. And I said, if you could do anything, just try something new, what would it be? And she's like, I have no idea. I don't even know where to start. Okay, then that's where you're going to start. You're just going to start trying things. You just have to look community, see what free classes are offered. Go to your local sporting goods store, see what free sporting, kayak class that's coming up, or in her library that was a free pottery class. You could try your first pottery class. So she went to a pottery class, and she was hooked. Like, she just developed this love for pottery, and she started making pottery. Then it led her into mosaics. She started doing mosaics. Now she goes to craft fairs, and she makes her little mosaic frames and sells them at craft fairs, and just has a ball with it.
Yeah, I love it.
she's so passionate about her health. She plans her meals out every day. She plans to go out and walk in the grass barefoot every day. And she's even she's in a study with the NIH now because her kind of cancer is so rare that a couple times a year she has to go and get her all this crazy amount of blood work done so that they can see how she's progressing as the years go on. Well, her numbers are going down. Like across the board, her health is improving. And it's not just nutrition, because before she got cancer, she was doing, a pretty healthy protocol. She'd been with me for a long time, just dialed in her nutrition, but she still, in some shape or form, had developed those carcinoid tumors. So those, in a sense, like her health in general, other than those tumors, is better than it was when she was just doing nutrition. Like her numbers then compared to her numbers now are like even better. So I love that about her, because it wasn't just, it like proved that it wasn't just the meal plan. It was like adding all these extra things improved her markers even more. And she's much more calm. Like she was a very high strung, like amped up individual. And now she's calm about her life. So yeah, it's really empowering to see that as well. But part of it is just being okay to discover, like I mentioned with my daughter, when you're bored, maybe your life is boring and you think every day it's the same day. I go to work, I come home, nothing's ever different. I look forward to my vacation, but then it's over. So what do I do next? Then it's time to discover. Maybe your job isn't really where you're cut out to be. What if you took a step of faith and just kind of stepped out and go, what would I do if I didn't need to get paid, but I just wanted to serve a purpose?
Yeah.
Look at that. Maybe you're going to make half the money or you don't get the benefits, but what if you're like 50 times happier and you drop 30 pounds? Because happiness is a way to fat loss. So like,
yeah, it's huge.
I've seen that firsthand too, with a family member who was a realtor, and he had left the real estate market. He'd gained 30 pounds over a course of a year being a realtor. He finally said, I can't do it anymore. And he left and he dropped 30 pounds like within 2 months. So like there's a power in really doing what our human nature was set out to do. So
yeah, I love that. Great story. Really good. So we're going to wrap up soon. Any last or final tips you want to share with the audience?
Well, I know a lot of them are things that you've talked about, and I'm not going to go into diet. I'm not going to go into exercise. I'm going to go into bio-individuality. So that individual that wakes up every day and asks themselves, how can this day be better than yesterday? Like, what can I do today to make this day better than yesterday? And what if I just started doing one small thing, like before I leave for work, going out and getting sunlight in my eyes and sitting outside and taking 5 deep breaths before I go to work? Small changes yield big results. I think Dr. Cruz calls it nonlinear changes. These small changes add up to huge dividends. So it's like invest in your personal bank account of like getting that AM sunlight and drinking more water throughout the day. I have one client, make a vision board, and I said, I want you to make a vision board of how you envision your perfect day, like getting up, having sunshine, walking barefoot. Maybe I'm gonna jump around, do some cartwheels in the yard, just like a little kid before I go to work. And then I'm going to go to work, and at every smoke break that my buddies take, I'm going to go take a non-smoke smoke break. Like I'm going to go outside and get
take a sun break, right?
I think that's the one thing and the one thing that smokers do right is a lot of them don't have their phones. They just go out and they puff on something. But if they just forget the puffer and just go out, that's so healthy. So yeah, more water through the day. And that these simple, they don't have to be drastic, like go keto, go paleo. Like it doesn't have to be that. It could just be these small changes of, okay, it's 8:30. I'm going to turn off my computer. I'm going to turn off my television. I'm going to turn off my smartphone. And there's a book that's sitting on my shelf that I've wanted to read for a long time. I'm going to read it. You might fall asleep 5 minutes after you do, but what if you sleep so soundly for the first time in, months, that you wake up and you're like, hey, something's happening here. These
that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
It goes back to like question everything. Like start to question your day. Like, what could I do better? What could I do better than the day before? I'm going to start asking myself questions of where I see myself a year from now, 5 years from now, and what it's going to take every day for me to get there. And doing so more outside than inside, because that's kind of the key to all of this is sunlight and getting that exposure to natural human biology, which is outside. Even if you're not an outdoors person, guess what? You can become one. And the really great way to do that is with stand-up paddling too.
Yeah, well, actually, Jodelle, so you're a professional stand-up paddleboarder. Tell us about that.
Well, I got my start just like anybody would. That I used to do tiny baby wave surfing. I'd go to Hawaii and just kind of catch little baby waves, or I'd go to Laguna Beach and catch little baby waves. I was by no means anything good because I'm from the Midwest, but I would go and one day I went to Hawaii and I saw the stand-up paddleboards on the shore, and I said, "Oh, I think I saw Cameron Diaz do this in a magazine. I'm gonna try that." The guy didn't give me any instruction. He's just like, "Here's a board, here's a paddle, go." And I went out and I stood up for the first time, and I'm like, this is like an endless wave. Like I'm just standing, like I'm never gonna fall on a surfboard. Like this is so perfect. Why are more people not doing this? So I got home from that trip. I immediately went on eBay because it's the only place I could find to buy a board. And I bought a board, it shipped to me, and I started paddling, and people on my lake thought I was crazy. They thought that I had tipped over my John boat and I was paddling on top of it. But I started, because I was a personal trainer at that time, I started bringing my workouts to the water, and I just used my board as a giant mat and did everything in the gym on my
awesome.
board. So I started, doing my own thing, and pretty soon, I didn't even know this was possible, but I got a phone call from BIC SUP, BIC stand-up paddleboards, and they said, "We've heard about you. You're a girl in the Midwest that's doing this. Nobody else is doing it in the Midwest. Can we sponsor you?" And I'm like,
"Oh, cool.
That's a possibility." So I actually was sponsored for about 6 years from BIC, and they're a wonderful company. I still ride all their boards, but I did resign my sponsorship about 2 years ago just to spend more time with my daughter.
Okay.
I quite a bit. But it's a wonderful sport because anybody can do it. And that's why I wanted to teach it. It's another way to empower people to go, you can do this. You can stand up on a board because there's no impact. If you have knee issues, you can still do it. If you have back issues, you can still do it. And from 7 to 97, anybody can do this. It's just a matter of the right board and the proper technique, and you got it. So
yeah, awesome. So do you train people still?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a home studio, and then I also I train people on the water. I do kind of personal training on paddle boards. So
that's cool.
I teach something called Paddle Fit, which is the founder, Brody Welty. He owns Paddle Fit Pro, and that's a certification process where we train coaches to actually teach people themselves, like more personal trainers, and they just come out and they become Paddle Fit certified to teach. So I do that, but I also teach Paddle Fit personal training to my own clients as well.
Okay, good. So Jodelle, talk a little bit about your ideal client.
Oh, my ideal client would be someone that questions everything, that wants to know more. I actually have one currently. Of course, I won't say her name, but she is wonderful about asking questions and wanting to learn. And I'm like that with my nutrition classes. When I teach classes, I say, I'm going to tell you why we're doing this, not just here's what to do, like not just here's the foods you should eat for menopause, like here's why, here's how it translates, to the point where I've had clients on some of my live Q&As that I've done go, you know what, you talk too much about the science, just give me the tips to do. I'm like, but I want you to understand. I want you to understand
right.
This crap up. Like it's really true, and it's really out there and available to you. And so, it's that person that questions everything and that's willing to learn. I don't believe in expertise, because expert kind of like connotates that you can be done learning now. You know all there is to know. You're the expert. And so I will never call myself an expert at anything, because I will never stop learning. And I think that's the ideal client, is someone who has been fed up with the dogma that Shape magazine has told them, and they're now going, I'm an individual. I'm different than my husband. I'm different than my brother. I'm different than my girlfriend. Tell me what works for me, and let's figure that out together. And I do that through a comprehensive, 321 question assessment. So it's kind of
cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a whole symptom burden analysis that gives me a snapshot of all their symptoms.
Okay, cool. So if people are interested in working with you and want to learn more about what you do, where can they find you?
Well, my website is getfitwithjodelle, all one word.com, getfitwithjodelle, Jodelle. And then I also have a Patreon page, which I'm pretty active on there. So patreon.com/Jodelle. And then Instagram is @getfitwithjodelle. And that's pretty much where you'll find me most of the time. You might find me on Twitter, but that's only because like some of my apps like link to Twitter and post things. So like not really on there. Look up Jodelle Fit on Twitter and things will just automatically pop up there. But and then I have YouTube videos like you do, and we did one together, so that was fun. And so those are Jodelle Fit as well. And I just love to put free content out. I have free iTunes podcasts for people to get I call it edutainment. Like I kind of
nice.
I like to add in little jokes, but also give them the science behind things. So Get Fit with Jodelle on iTunes. And I even have Paddle Fit audio workouts to where they can take me on their paddleboard, and I can guide them through a workout on their paddleboard or on their mat.
Cool.
Maybe they don't have a paddleboard yet, but they want to see what it feels like to work out on a paddleboard, so they can just do it on their mat. But they have to download it beforehand and then turn it on airplane mode, because I don't want them radiating themselves while they're out in beautiful nature. You have to download the podcast first and then go take it on your
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, great. That's lots of great stuff. So if you forget some of like the websites, just Google Jodelle Fit, and you're going to find a ton of information on Jodelle and how to connect with her. So Jodelle, thanks so much for coming on tonight and sharing some of your time and your knowledge and your wisdom and your stories. It was really fun. And any parting words?
Right now, we've been on, all of us that have been listening or being on devices, we've been on here long enough, so let's go outside and play. I
love it. Okay, well, with that, folks, I'm going to head outside. I'm going to play. I'm going to walk around barefoot. I'm going to get some sun, and we'll see you all soon. Got a comment here from Carrie Smith. Great job, Jodelle.
Oh, thank you.
So, hey, thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.